Hey there guys, Erica here from Highway 49 RC. Thank you so much to my patrons and channel members for supporting me the way you do. You guys make the videos on this channel possible. So, today we are working on the Javelin build again. Last episode, we got the chassis pretty much all put together. It looks really cool. It's super rigid, which I'm honestly very surprised about how rigid it is. And today, we're going to be working on suspension, A-arms, steering blocks, shocks, all of the above. Oh boy, shocks. I don't like shocks, but you know what, we're gonna get right to it. So we're gonna be starting off with step 14 here with assembling some turnbuckles. I've got the turnbuckle links right here, I've got my rod ends, and I've got the pivot balls in my parts tray just off screen. What's really nice is they actually give you a diagram of how long the front and rear turnbuckles need to be, which is really nice. The front ones need to be 19 millimeters between the rod ends, and the rears need to be 20.5 millimeters. Got these guys for the rear, and these two for the front. Gotta make sure the rod ends on the front ones are 90 degrees off of each other, and the rear ones are in line with each other. Then next up, we need bag D. Looks like we're going to be working on the shock towers, and the shock towers tie in with the turnbuckle mounts, it appears. Here's our front shock tower. That is going to get a bolt that goes through the turnbuckle mount, like that. Put our turnbuckle in with it. Put a nylon lock nut on the back side. And then it wants another screw going the opposite way, this direction, with a non-lock nut on there. And this is going to be the upper mounting point for our shock. And of course, we do the same thing on the other side. This is the rear shock tower. We've got the same setup with the screws and non-lock nuts here for the upper shock mount. Then for mounting the turnbuckle, it wants it in the lower hole. There's a second upper hole for adjustment purposes. This guy then is going to mount up to the rear transmission case, if I can get it finagled in there like I just had it. How did I get you in there? I literally just had it in there. There we go. This guy gets mounted up to the rear transmission case with a couple screws there and there. Next up, we get to play with the A-arms and hinge pins, which I have the A-arms just here. These two are the front ones, and these two are the rears. So there are two lengths of hinge pins. We're going to start with the front. The front uses the short ones. I've got my front A-arm here, and we're going to stick our hinge pin all the way through. Now there's a flat on these hinge pins, and that is for a set screw that is going to hold it in. So I've made sure to align that flat when I install this hinge pin, and we're gonna sink a set screw in there to hold it in place. It's the same process for the other three corners of the car. The only difference is that the rear uses the longer hinge pins. Ta-da! We now have 4 lovely A-arms on our chassis. Let's take a look at the next step. Oh man, this is going to be a wild one. This is the steering knuckle and C-hub assembly along with the stub shaft and bearings. I'm going to build one side off camera, and then I'll come back and show you guys how to build the other side. Alright, here are our parts. I'm going to start with the aluminum knuckle and put my bearings in said knuckle. And then I'm going to take my stub shaft, put it in like so. And I'm going to grab my hex, which this side with the little shouldery thing needs to go towards the bearings. And then we're going to grab a screw pin, and that is going to hold our hex on. Now we're going to grab a ball stud, and with the L or the R facing upward, we're going to put the ball stud in the top. And we're going to put a lock nut on the bottom, and we're only going to tighten the ball stud until the base of the screw comes flush with the bottom of the nut, just like that. So now our knuckle assembly is complete. We can move on to the C-hub. We're going to grab another ball screw, and that guy is going to go right here. And it doesn't want the tip of the screw protruding past that inside edge. Now the fun part, we're going to put our knuckle bushings in the C-hub. We got 2 of them, one for the top and the bottom. Okay. I'm going to take my knuckle assembly that we just finished and put it so that L on it right there is on top. That goes right there, just like that. There you go. So we've got the left symbol on the top. We've got the left symbol on the knuckle facing up. Now we can grab a couple little button head screws that will need some Loctite, and we can go ahead and thread those in. And behold, we have the left hand steering knuckle and C-hub assembly. If you're building along, here's a good view of the left-hand side, and here is a comparable view of the right-hand side. We're now going to take our steering knuckle and C-hub assembly, slide it into the control arm or A-arm, put our pin in there, which is going to get a C-clip on the back side. I'll do that in a moment. We're going to grab the dog bone shaft here, stick that in the out drive, and get that into the stub shaft cup. Now we can stick our screw through the turnbuckle and thread that screw into the top of the knuckle. And ta-da! We've got a working suspension and steering setup on one corner. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. There we go, same thing is done on the other side, and I've got my E-clips in without losing them, thank goodness. So bag E, looks like we're doing some steering links, and these ones don't get balls in the rod ends because they go on ball studs on the knuckle and the bell crank. Steering links are on, and check that out, we've got a fully working steering linkage system. That's pretty sweet. Here's our caster block or rear hub carrier assembly diagram. I've got my parts here. I'm gonna start with the stub shaft, put a bearing on there, stick the bearing in the caster block or hub carrier, get that pressed in, press another bearing onto the outside of the carrier. And I'm gonna grab a hex again with a little lip side facing towards the carrier. Line that up with a hole, grab a screw pin, drop that in there, give that a quick snug down. It also wants a ball stud on this side. This ball stud needs to be left unscrewed just slightly, I think for rod end articulation purposes. Then the last thing we have to do to our caster block is to install this little camber bushing. Now the 2 little lines on it face the inside, like that. Pops right in there, and then a set screw holds it in just there. Not too tight, obviously, because the shaft needs to go through that hole, but I think that should be pretty good. And there is our rear caster block fully assembled. Now to install our rear caster block, I'm going to run a hinge pin through the A-arm, through our caster block, like that. I'm going to put an E-clip on there off camera. And then we're going to stick a dog bone into the drive cups and set up our turnbuckle here so that it should just slide right in the gap. Just like that. And hopefully just slam a screw in there. And kablamo! We've got some working rear suspension. It's very, very smooth. I like it. Nice and sturdy. This angle on the turnbuckle is a little weird. It's put together correctly, but I don't know. It just seems a little strange. Also, the instructions do say to put grease on the dog bones. I have never put grease on dog bone shafts. That's just going to attract dirt, and I'd rather run them dry than have this be a dirt attraction point. So that's just my 2 cents. Hey, post-production Erica here. I've been live streaming this series as I've been filming it, and during my live streams I have had a couple supporters that I want to give shoutouts to today, and those people are RC and More. Fuck, where'd it go? What? I just had it here. RC and More, Wielding Traveler, and EMORHC37. So, thank you so much for your guys' support during the live stream, and with that, let's get right back to the video. We now get to move on to the shocks, which definitely look a little bit intimidating. The fronts are slightly different from the rears. The main differences are that the rear uses the letter C pistons, and the front uses the letter A pistons. And then on the front assembly, you use this 2mm spacer underneath the piston on the shaft, whereas the rear one, you do not. The first thing we need to do is unscrew the bottom cap off of the shock body. Then we need to put this tiny little seal ring on the base of the seal cartridge. Just like that. Boy, do you really need fingernails for that one, though. Man, that was hard. Next, we're going to grab our short shock shaft, because I'm building a front shock right now. And we're going to put an E-clip on it, as I already have. And then put the piston on with this recessed side towards the E-clip, because the E-clip sits down inside that little recess. And then we put one more E-clip on the top, which I'm not going to do on camera because holy fuck, that's hard. With my shock shaft and piston ready to go, we can go ahead and start assembling the seal cartridge. We're going to start with a 2mm spacer, which only goes on the front shock, not the rear one, just the front. And then we're going to put this guy, which I think is some sort of bypass thing. I don't know, I'm not that familiar with shock stuff. But that goes on there. It's kind of like a secondary piston. And then put 2 O-rings, which I have already green slimed, with the classic Team Associated green slime. Put those guys on. And then we're going to grab this little guy. As you can see, it's got a flange on it, and that flange is going to go against the O-rings, like that. Now we're going to grab our seal cartridge, stick that on there, and then we'll put another 2mm spacer on the shock shaft, and finally we'll put the rod end on. And that should be our completed seal cartridge. We can now take our shock shaft and seal cartridge assembly and install it into the shock body. So they give us this nice nifty tool for the seal cartridge and another tool for the back of the shock body. And with these we can snug down the seal cartridge. Of course I'm going to put oil in this, but I'm going to do that off camera because it's going to be very messy. Now that I've got my shock filled with oil, we can go ahead and put the spring cup on. Got to make sure to raise up the little spacer there so that it goes on top of the spring cup. And then we can put our spring on. And these shocks use a different method of adjustment than most RC shocks do. It actually uses a clamping collar. Now, the instruction book says for the front spring, it wants it about 4mm down from this edge. So I'm going to guess that that's about it. Snug it down. There you go. There is a front shock built. And through the magic of editing, I've got 3 more shocks all ready to go. The way that these guys get installed is super straightforward. It's the same for all 4 corners. Pop the lower rod end onto the ball stud, and then grab a pivot ball, plastic pivot ball, pop that in the top of the shock body, slide that on the screw on the shock tower, and put a lock nut behind it. Okay, I did put these little guys on backwards, but I have fixed it. This is the correct way. The fat side is supposed to go against the shock tower. But with that said, we have a car with fully working suspension. Oh yeah! The suspension feels amazing. It looks freaking awesome. And that, I think, is a wonderful stopping point for today's video. The Kyosho Javelin is really starting to come together, you guys. This thing looks so sweet. The suspension is awesome, very nice and plush, works super smooth. And yeah, I'm thrilled with this. We got a lot done today. We got, I mean, literally all the suspension put together. That is a huge, huge step towards completing this kit. So with that, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. If you are looking forward to the next episode, which is going to be completely finishing off the kit, do leave a big fat thumbs up. If this does happen to be the first video that you have seen by me, make sure you go down, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below. If you want to catch up with me outside of YouTube, head over to my Instagram at highway49_RC. If you want to chat with fellow RC and full-scale enthusiasts, head over to my Discord server. And if you want to support me in what I do, consider becoming a channel member or a patron. Links are in the description, guys. Thanks again so much for watching, and I will see y'all on the next one.